Silent Hill 2 is an extremely important game to me. Like, it's probably in my top 3 games I've ever played in my life. I've played the original many, many times, and I find it extremely emotionally significant to me. It was extremely important to me when I was growing up, and I feel like it's a game everyone should play. I think the first 3 Silent Hill games are just amazing, like complete masterpiece games. When I heard that they were going to remake Silent Hill 2, I was very, very unenthusiastic. I was somebody who played the Resident Evil 4 remake and the Resident Evil 2 remake, and I have a lot of issues with remakes, just on a conceptual level. I don't think they can all be terrible. I think you can definitely do a good job, but at the end of the day, like, making a remake implies that there is something to be fixed. And in my opinion, Silent Hill 2 is a perfect game. And a lot of the things which appear to need to be fixed, that Konami thinks need fixing, are things which I feel completely went over their heads. So we previously got that like combat trailer, and that put a lot of doubt in my mind, because I thought, why are you showing combat for a game that is historically not a combat driven game? Silent Hill is not Resident Evil. It's never been that. So to dedicate an entire trailer to combat just made absolutely no sense to me. And it already made me feel like, yeah, they just really don't know what they're doing. And then looking at the gameplay in that trailer, I thought, this really just looked like the RE4 remake. It just looked like it played exactly like that. I don't think the RE4 remake is bad, but I would not say that that is a good formula for a Silent Hill game, especially not Silent Hill 2. I was like coming out of that trailer like feeling very sort of negative towards it, and I know for a fact that a lot of people will just easily point the finger and say, oh, all remakes are bad, like there's no way you can do it, whatever. Like, I think you can do it, but I feel like the task you have is just unrealistic. And I'm not just saying this because I want to be like different or be like anti whatever's new. Like, I genuinely just love the original so much, and I'm really disappointed that this is the direction that things are going. So there was a few things I noticed from the trailer that I really didn't like. The first thing is they've doubled down on this third person camera, and I don't like this for 2 reasons. The first reason is the fixed cameras in Silent Hill 2 are integral to what gives that game its feeling. You have a fixed camera in a lot of places, and then in other places you will have a more free camera. So like when you're in the outdoor sections, you can pretty much move the camera how you want. It will follow the player around. And then when you go into certain indoor sections, it will be locked, right? And this really, really helped enforce like a feeling of claustrophobia, because if a developer really wanted you to have a lack of control when going into a room, they could just enforce a locked camera there. And I'm not one who's just going to say, oh, fixed cameras are better than movable cameras, because in my opinion, the way that the fixed cameras work in Resident Evil, like the older ones, is just not very good. Like, I just don't think it's a good implementation. I always thought that Silent Hill did it so much better by having like dynamically fixed cameras. So when I knew that these weren't going to be returning, I was very disappointed, because this has like further implications beyond just gameplay. Like, the way that levels are designed from a visual perspective, from a gameplay perspective, is entirely keeping the camera angles in mind. They're not just secondary. It's not like they just build the level and then put the player in and call it a day. It's like they're built with each other. Everything is intentional. So everything, when you play Silent Hill 2 to this day, anything you see was intended to be seen. Like, a developer sat there and decided to place those items in a specific way, and you will see it the exact way they intended, right? But if you play the Silent Hill 2 remake, where you have a free moving camera, every single person who plays that game is going to see something else, and the director and the game designers and the developers have less and less control over your experience. So having a very consistent experience is not something you can have without having things like this. So that was my first thing. And then I thought, okay, well, you know, it's 2024. I understand why fixed cameras and interesting camera angles and stuff is important, but, you know, the average person who does nothing but play Fortnite or whatever, like, is not gonna understand that. So I was like, okay, well, there is a way they can make it work. And when I saw the trailer today, I just thought, wow, like, they really don't understand. So what I mean by this is the camera is just too zoomed in. Like, the camera is literally like 3 or 4 feet behind James at all times. And you may think this is a good thing from like a design perspective, because it's like, oh, you can show off all these high resolution textures, or you can look at how detailed his model is. But, you know, when you're in the outdoor sections of Silent Hill 2, they feel so isolating because there's so much space around the player. The player takes up such a small portion of your screen. And just comparing the two and seeing how much of your screen is obstructed by the fact that the camera is so zoomed in, you can barely see anything. And especially where the game has always been about atmosphere and surroundings and the world and the buildings, you know, you need to have that distance and that wider field of view in order to appreciate all these things. And I was really disappointed with that, because I thought, you know, this was something that they could do. Now, there's a couple other things that I kind of wanted to talk about. One of which was the developers in interview, and they even had it on screen at one point. They were like, a faithful adaptation, keeping the original vision. And then they immediately showed like the changes to the layout, changes to the gameplay, changes to the story. And I was just thinking, you know, like, why are you saying it's faithful to the original if it's different? You know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it being different, but they think they should have just been more honest about that and say like it's a reinterpretation. You know, that's fine. But the problem that I have is when you say it's a faithful adaptation, exactly the same, whatever, and it just isn't, you know, you end up with the same issue that Resident Evil 4 has and Resident Evil 2 has, where if you go on the internet and you search Resident Evil 4, you don't see the original game, you know, and if you search Resident Evil 2, you also don't see the original game, you just see the remake. And I'm anticipating a future where when you search Silent Hill 2, I mean, we're pretty much already there based on like people searching up about this current trailer and stuff like that, but if you search Silent Hill 2, you will just see the remake, you know, and that will be the public facing image of the game. So to do that, it really should be a faithful adaptation. You shouldn't entirely change the intention and the depiction of the game and then take its name and take its place, you know, from the public eye. I just don't think it's right, in my opinion. And I think the best sort of remake type thing I've seen that has handled this well has been Metal Gear Solid Delta, you know, or Metal Gear Delta. So they remade Metal Gear Solid 3, or are remaking Metal Gear Solid 3, but they chose to name it Metal Gear Delta. And I love that because you're not implying that the remake is a replacement of the original. So if you search Metal Gear Solid 3, you will still see Metal Gear Solid 3. If you search Metal Gear Delta, you will get the remake, you know, and I just thought that is a very good way of doing it, because it is so ignorant to imply that anything you can make can take the mantle, you know, especially for a game like Silent Hill 2. Like, it is unfathomable how much of an impact this game had culturally, in terms of the gaming space, the horror space, modern art. Like, it is an absolute masterpiece. And to imply that something made by fucking Bloober Team can not only replicate but replace it is just horrible, in my opinion. I really didn't like that. Like, they should have just given it its own name, you know, and treated it like its own thing, but they didn't, you know. And I don't like that. Now, the last couple of things I don't like are really visual things. So one thing is just the fact that the character models look so low fidelity compared to the rest of the game. And I was thinking, like, you know, if you're doing like this AAA modern game, like, everything should look good, but the players look like they're like green screened on, like they don't look like they're supposed to be there, you know. And then the other thing is Maria's outfit is like not her, and also she just doesn't really look like her. Like, this was another thing for me that I felt like really missed the point. Like, Maria is supposed to be a male gaze sort of like interpretation of what an attractive female should look like. So in the original, she has like very over the top, like badly applied makeup, extremely garish clothes, like very like bright colors, bold patterns, you know. I think the outfit's based off Gwen Stefani. And the whole thing of that is supposed to be like, that is how James in his mind as a man would interpret an attractive female, you know. It is not like an outfit or a look that a woman at that time would pick. Like, it's something that's supposed to be what a man wants, which is why it doesn't look right. That's the whole point. It's supposed to be like slightly off. So to tone it all down and to give her a different jacket and to really like make all the patterns and colors really subtle and dull and look more like an intentional outfit choice, and then to give her like really normal makeup and less like bold hair, like hair dye, like, I just thought, you know, like, their interpretation of that from like a dev team perspective is like, oh well, you know, if a woman was to do this outfit, this is how they do it, you know. And it's like, that's not what it should be. Like, that's not what that character was ever supposed to be. Do you know what I mean? And I really didn't like that. And I also didn't like the fact that she just looks so young. Like, she looks so young. Like, she looked older in the original. She looked like about 30, maybe like early 40s, and she had like a lot of visible like aging in her face, but then the makeup was like a big sort of like contrast. And in the remake, she looks like Ashley from Resident Evil 4. But she looks like an 18-year-old, you know. And like, that's not really what her character is. You know what I mean? Yeah, so these are just some of my thoughts. I'm gonna probably make a more in-depth video talking about stuff. I just wanted to get this out since the trailer just went live. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Have a great day.